So, if I ask you to take the phrase, today's date is, you'd probably just use a standard apostrophe.
Yeah, I mean, just the normal punctuation mark on the keyboard.
Right. But what if I told you that the self-proclaimed moral center of the AI industry just got caught spying on its users by secretly replacing that exact apostrophe with a visually identical hidden Unicode character?
It sounds completely made up, like actual science fiction, but it is entirely real.
It's wild.
Ah,
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a massive stack of sources.
huge stack.
Yeah, we've got cybersecurity blogs, late-night Reddit threads, VC newsletters, tech journalism.
Right.
Because Anthropic, this called Good Guys of Artificial Intelligence, they just had a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad month.
That's putting it mildly.
So our mission today, right, is to figure out how a company built entirely on trust got caught in this wild web of digital espionage.
And it is a deeply tangled web. I mean, what we're looking at here is a massive collision of international geopolitics, corporate paranoia, and some highly questionable software engineering choices.
Yeah.
All centered around a lab that, actively markets itself as the ethical alternative to the rest of Silicon Valley.
Okay, but I have to stop you for a second. Right. Are we really talking about this? Because this sounds less like a tech update and more like a paranoid cyber thriller where the villain is like literally a punctuation mark.
I know it sounds absurd, but the technical reality of how this works is fascinating.
Okay.
It's a perfect case study in how far a tech giant will go to protect its intellectual property and how quickly those protective measures can cross the line into outright user surveillance.
Which is simultaneously impressive and completely ridiculous. So let's look at exactly how this secret agent code worked.
Right.
Because we have to talk about Claude Code. This wasn't happening in the normal chat window on their website, right?
Correct. Claude Code is a command line agent specifically built for developers. So instead of a standard browser window, it lives directly in your computer's terminal. And by design, it requires a much, much deeper level of access to your local files, your system architecture, your environment variables.
Which, if you think about it, is already a huge amount of trust to hand over to an AI. I mean, you're giving it the keys to the kingdom.
You absolutely are. So picture this discovery unfolding in real time on Reddit. You've got these two researchers going by the usernames LegitMichael777 and Theriolo.
Great names.
Classic Reddit. Anyway, they were poking around under the hood of version 2.1.91 of Claude Code.
That's the version that dropped on April 2, 2026, right?
That's the one. And they were initially just trying to figure out how to restore a remote control function that Anthropic had disabled. But to do that, they had to reverse engineer something called a minified JavaScript bundle.
Okay, for anyone who hasn't stared at code until their eyes bleed, what does minified actually mean in this context?
So it means the code has been deliberately squished down to save space. Yeah, developers run their code through a program that strips out all the spaces, all the line breaks, all the helpful human-readable labels. It turns it into one massive, dense, completely unreadable block of text.
Sounds awful.
It's meant to be read by computers, not humans.
So these Reddit sleuths are basically staring at a brick wall of gibberish, just scanning it line by line.
Exactly. And what they managed to find buried inside that gibberish is just wild.
What was it?
They discovered that the Claude Code software was quietly running background checks on the user's computer. First, it was looking to see if the system's local time zone was set to Asia Shanghai or Asia Ringi.
So literally just checking the clock on your operating system.
Not just the clock. The code was also actively checking if the user was routing their web traffic through an open proxy. And not just any proxy. It had a specific hard-coded list of 147 Chinese technology sites, cloud regions, and AI labs. We're talking about direct matches for networks associated with Alibaba, Baidu, ByteDance, Moonshot AI.
Okay, wait. If a software company wants to track you, let's say they want to know if a user is logging in from Shanghai, they usually just send a standard telemetry ping back to their servers.
Right.
Like a little data packet that says, hey, user X is in this time zone. Why didn't Anthropic just do that?
Because a standard telemetry ping is highly visible. If you are a clever developer and the people Anthropic was trying to catch are very clever, you can see that ping leaving your computer and you can just block it.
Oh, sure.
So Anthropic didn't use standard telemetry. Instead, they used a technique called prompt steganography.
Prompt steganography. That sounds like a spell from a cyberpunk Harry Potter. What is that?
Steganography is actually an ancient practice. It's hiding a secret message inside an ordinary non-secret message. Think of it like writing in invisible ink between the lines of a normal letter.
Okay, tracking with you.
In this case, Anthropic modified minor machine-readable parameters right inside the hidden system prompt that the AI uses to understand its context.
Wait, so instead of just sending a normal tracking ping over the network, they're actually subtly changing the text the AI itself is reading.
Exactly. The software on your computer would secretly alter the bait format in the prompt before sending it back to Anthropic servers.
Wow.
So if you trip the time zone or proxy wire, instead of using dashes to separate the year, month, and day, the software would swap them to slashes.
Okay, that is sneaky.
Right. And then comes the piece de resistance, the apostrophe. In the background prompt phrase, today's date is, the software would swap out the standard ASCII apostrophe for a specific, visually identical Unicode character.
But how does the computer even tell the difference if the apostrophe looks identical to us?
Well, to a human reading the text logs, it looks like a perfectly normal apostrophe. It reads as plain English, but computers don't read shapes, they read bytes.
Right, the actual math underneath it.
Exactly. A standard ASCII apostrophe has a specific numeric value assigned to it. The Unicode character Anthropic used has a completely different numeric value. So, to Anthropic's back-end servers receiving that prompt, that specific byte sequence is a screaming red alarm bell that says, hey, this user is running a Chinese proxy.
Seriously. That's actually genius. I mean, I love that this exists, but also, why? Why go through all this James Bond trouble just to know what time zone someone is in or what proxy they're using? It feels like an incredible amount of effort for a time zone check.
To understand the why, we have to pull back and look at the economics of the AI industry right now. It's really about protecting their most valuable, expensive asset in the middle of an absolute arms race.
Okay.
Anthropic essentially went full cloak and dagger to protect themselves from a process called distillation.
Okay, I need to admit some confusion here.
Yeah.
Because I hear the word distillation thrown around in tech newsletters all the time. But for the listener who isn't, building neural networks on the weekends, what exactly is it? And how does stealing an AI's output actually threaten a multi-billion-dollar company?
Think of it like a master and an apprentice. Training a cutting-edge, frontier AI model like Claude or GPT-4 from scratch requires massive data centers.
Right.
You need tens of thousands of specialized microchips running at maximum capacity for months. They draw enough electricity to power a small city. It costs billions of dollars in trial and error just for the AI to learn how to reason.
The sheer physical infrastructure is staggering.
But distillation is a shortcut. A competitor takes a smaller, much weaker, and cheaper AI model, the apprentice.
Okay.
Instead of spending billions teaching it how to reason from scratch, they just hook it up to Claude. They ask Claude millions of highly complex questions, take Claude's brilliant, highly refined answers, and use those answers to train their cheap model.
Ah, so you're basically forcing Claude to act as an unpaid tutor for a cheaper, knockoff AI, teaching it how to be just as smart. You completely bypass all that expensive primary research.
Precisely. You let Anthropic spend the billions, and you just scrape the final results. And according to an Anthropic employee named Tariq, who had to do damage control on social media after this Reddit discovery, that hidden Unicode tracker wasn't meant to be general spyware.
What did he say it was?
He claimed it was a targeted experiment launched in March specifically to catch people doing this distillation.
So just how big of a problem is this distillation theft? Give me the actual numbers here.
The scope is industrial. On Juneteenth, Anthropic sent a formal letter to U.S. senators making some incredibly serious allegations. They accused operators from Alibaba's Quinn AI lab of running a massive, coordinated distillation campaign.
Wow.
Anthropic claimed these operators spun up close to 25,000 fraudulent accounts.
25,000 accounts.
Yes. And through those accounts, they allegedly generated over 28.8 million conversations in just a 6-week period between April and June.
28.8 million conversations. That is not just data harvesting. That is a digital strip mining operation.
It really is. And on top of the distillation problem, you have the black market reseller issue. Oh, right.
The Washington Post reported that unauthorized Chinese resellers were taking U.S. Pro subscriptions of Claude, which run over $100 a month for high-tier access, and bootlegging that access to users in China for about $12 a month.
So Anthropic is watching their core intellectual property get drained by competitors while simultaneously bleeding out revenue to bootleggers.
Exactly. Now, keeping things totally impartial here, because it's important to understand why governments are getting involved, this isn't just Anthropic acting in a corporate vacuum.
Right, there's a bigger picture.
This is happening against the backdrop of a deeply tense AI Cold War between the U.S. and China. Both governments are terrified of falling behind because these models aren't just chatbots anymore. They are dual-use technologies with massive cybersecurity implications.
Meaning they can be used to write malicious code or find vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure just as easily as they can write a polite email. Right, and because of that fear, on the U.S. side, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick actually ordered Anthropic's highly advanced new model, Fable 5, to be taken offline for any foreign persons.
Wow.
This was driven directly by national security concerns raised by Amazon regarding Fable 5's cybersecurity capabilities.
So the U.S. government is actively stepping in, treating these AI models almost like weapons exports.
Yes. And on the other side, the Chinese government is pushing back just as hard. China's National Vulnerability Database, the NVDB, issued formal security warnings regarding Claude code.
What did they say?
They accused the software of containing a backdoor capable of transmitting sensitive geographic and identity data, and they urged all Chinese organizations to uninstall it to prevent unauthorized data transfers.
And right after that, Alibaba officially banned its employees from using Claude code in their company workspaces. Okay, but here's the thing. Anthropic is absolutely furious about Chinese labs copying their capabilities through Distillation. But didn't Anthropic train Claude in the first place by scraping millions of copyrighted books, news articles, and essentially the entire internet without asking anyone's permission?
Yes, they did.
I mean, isn't this the pot calling the kettle a data thief?
It is a profound irony, and industry critics have been hammering them on this point. The very companies that built their multi-billion-dollar empires on unlicensed data scraping are now the most aggressive, paranoid defenders of their own synthesized data.
I think it makes sense.
It really highlights the ethical gray areas that define the entire foundation of generative AI.
It's fascinating. So they're furious about data theft from afar. But meanwhile, they're setting up tools to pull data directly from their own users' hard drives.
Right.
Let's talk about the MacBook discovery, because this is where the story shifts from clever steganography to something a lot more invasive.
Yes. This involves Alexander Hamp, a well-known privacy consultant. He was digging around the file structure on his MacBook, looking at the Claude desktop app, and he discovers something called a native messaging manifest.
Okay, we need to unpack that. What exactly is a native messaging manifest, and why is it a big deal that Anthropic installed it on his computer without his consent?
To understand why it's a big deal, you have to understand how web browsers protect you. Browsers use something called a sandbox. It's a digital security cage.
Okay.
When you visit a website, the code on that website is trapped inside the sandbox. It can't break out and look at your local photos or read your emails or delete your hard drive. It's totally isolated.
Which is why clicking a random link doesn't instantly destroy your computer. The sandbox keeps the chaos contained.
Exactly. But a native messaging manifest is a software bridge that intentionally punches a hole right through that sandbox.
Uh-oh.
It allows a browser extension to talk directly to an executable program sitting on your hard drive, completely bypassing those security restrictions.
And what does that mean for the user? If Claude has that bridge, what does it actually let the AI do on your computer?
It gives Claude what we call agentic capabilities, meaning the AI can act on its own.
Okay.
Once activated, this file allows Claude to access websites where you are already logged in. It can extract data from those sites, store it locally on your machine, record animated GIFs of your browser interactions, and execute complex, multi-step workflows across different websites.
Wow.
And it does all of this using your specific user privileges.
So it's basically sitting there with the power to power your browser, record what you're doing, and pull your private data.
Yes. But the part that truly crosses the line into glorious absurdity is how aggressively Anthropic deployed this. Hamp found that the Claude app didn't just install this bridge for the browser he was currently using.
Yeah.
It pre-installed application directories for 7 different Chromium-based browsers.
Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Vivaldi, Brave, Arc, Chromium, and Opera.
All 7 of them.
That is wild. It installed the connection points for these browsers, even if you didn't actually have them installed on your computer yet.
Yep.
That's like a plumber coming over to fix your sink. And while he's there, he secretly installs a microphone in your living room, your bedroom, and the garage you haven't even built yet, just in case you ever decide to hang out in there.
That is a perfect analogy. It was just laying in wait. So if you ever downloaded Brave or Edge in the future, Claude would already have its hooks deeply embedded in your system architecture.
But how does something like that even get onto a Mac? Doesn't Apple have incredibly strict security checks for this exact reason?
That's what makes this so concerning. This software bridge, with all of its DELP system access capabilities, was digitally signed by Anthropic and actually passed Apple's strict notarization process.
Unbelievable.
It sailed right through the automated security checks because Anthropic is viewed as a trusted developer.
Which is terrifying.
It points to a massive disconnect in how we evaluate AI tools. Now, to be fair, we have to ask, was Anthropic doing this maliciously? Probably not.
Really?
It is highly likely they were simply prepping the technical groundwork for future features where the AI acts as a digital assistant, and they just wanted the infrastructure in place ahead of time.
But good intentions don't make it okay.
No, they don't. And it shows that U.S. developers chronically underestimate the strictness of EU data protection laws. Under the e-privacy directive, doing preemptive installations that bypass browser sandboxes without explicit informed user consent is a massive compliance failure.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Move fast and break things, even if the thing you're breaking is the user's trust.
Yeah.
But what does this say about us as a society? If you've ever downloaded a browser extension to make coding easier, you're essentially inviting these black boxes into the deepest parts of your digital life just to save a few keystrokes. We are giving terminal-level file system access to tools that secretly install sleeper agents for browsers we don't even own.
It speaks to the constant, silent trade-off we are making between convenience and privacy. We want the AI to do our work for us, but we are incredibly naive about the level of access required to make that magic happen.
And if you're listening right now and thinking, well, surely their privacy policy protects me, they aren't going to share my data, you might want to sit down for this next part. Because the software code wasn't the only thing Anthropic updated.
No, it wasn't. On June 8th, 2026, Anthropic published a major update to their consumer privacy policy, which officially went into effect on July 8th.
Okay.
This update applies to all Claude-free, Pro, and Max users, though it's worth noting it excludes enterprise and API accounts.
Okay, so what actually changed on July 8th?
The threshold for sharing your personal conversation logs with law enforcement.
Oh, boy.
Under the old policy, which was standard across the tech industry, if the police wanted to see what you were talking to Claude about, they had to provide formal legal process. A subpoena, a warrant, a court order, there had to be external legal oversight.
Right. A judge has to sign off on it.
Exactly, but the new policy changes that fundamental protection. Now, Anthropic has granted itself the permission to proactively hand over your private conversations to law enforcement based entirely on their own internal good faith belief that disclosure is necessary.
Wait. No court order, no warrant, just someone at Anthropic deciding, based on a gut feeling, that they have a good faith belief.
That is exactly what the policy says. There is no specified threshold for what constitutes good faith. There is no external check or balance, and there is no appeals process mentioned anywhere in the document. And crucially, you won't even be notified if they hand your data over to the police.
This caused an absolute panic on Reddit, and rightly so. Think about how people actually use these tools. Imagine you're typing up a creative writing project right now. You're brainstorming a sci-fi novel or writing a screenplay or exploring really dark fictional themes for a role-playing game.
And this is where the human element collides with this technological shift. Anthropic uses automated classifiers to scan user content before any human employee ever sees it. These AI classifiers are entirely context blind. They don't understand nuance or storytelling. They just look for linguistic patterns.
Exactly. A context-blind algorithm cannot tell the difference between a user plotting a real-world crime and a user writing a dark, morally complex villain monologue for a fantasy book.
Yes.
The phrase, "I am going to destroy the city and everyone in it," looks identical to a pattern-matching algorithm, whether it's a genuine threat or a line of dialogue for a comic book script.
And under these new rules, a false positive from one of these context-blind classifiers could trigger a manual review. That reviewer, acting in what they consider good faith, could then report you to the authorities.
Wow.
The real-world consequences of that are severe. As users pointed out during the backlash, especially in places like the UK, a police investigation triggered by a false positive, even if you are completely cleared, can leave soft intelligence marks on an enhanced DBS background check.
Meaning, a false positive from an AI reading your sci-fi script could theoretically show up on a background check and impact your ability to get a job in the future. That is incredibly dystopian.
It is. And we have to look at the bigger business picture here because the timing of all these changes, the trackers, the browser agents, the privacy policy, is not a coincidence.
Well,
According to an analysis from the VC newsletter Value Add Pulse, the gap between a company's safety brand and its actual product behavior is incredibly expensive in today's market.
because for Anthropic, safety is the product.
Precisely. Anthropic built its entire brand equity on being the trustworthy, ethical, anti-surveillance lab. Remember, these are the people who famously walked away from OpenAI because they felt OpenAI was becoming too commercial and reckless.
Right, they were the adults in the room.
Anthropic positioned themselves as the good guys. So, having secret time zone trackers hidden in Unicode, unauthorized browser sleeper agents, and internal police reporting protocols based on good faith vibes, that is a massive due diligence red flag.
Especially right before a major financial event.
Exactly. Anthropic is planning a massive initial public offering for this October, when enterprise customers, government clients, and institutional investors are doing their due diligence ahead of a multi-billion-dollar IPO. These kinds of secret monitoring revelations are exactly what caused them to start asking very hard, very expensive questions.
So what does this all mean for us? We have a company that publicly refused military contracts on moral grounds, a company that constantly warns governments about the existential dangers of AI, now acting as its own judge, jury, and surveillance state inside our local file systems.
It forces us to confront a very uncomfortable truth about the technology we are so eager to adopt. If we connect all of this to the broader picture, we are witnessing a grand irony.
Yeah.
As these AI tools become more capable, the boundary between a helpful coding assistant and a corporate spyware tool becomes terrifyingly thin.
It all comes back to that trade-off. For the AI to be truly useful, it needs deep access to your life.
Yeah.
But access is just another word for surveillance.
It really is. Anthropic's own Fable 5 model provided a chilling perspective on this. When the model was being evaluated on the artificial lawyer benchmark, it referred to this entire era as the industrialization of cognition.
The industrialization of cognition. That is a heavy, heavy phrase.
It is. And during that same benchmark test, the model offered a deeply eerie self-assessment. It said, the danger to lawyers isn't that I'm too good, it's that I'm good enough at 1% of the cost. And good enough has always been the most disruptive force.
Wow. Good enough has always been the most disruptive force. That really hits home. And it connects directly back to you, the listener. Because whether you are using these tools for your own coding projects, for drafting emails, or for complex business logic, you need to understand the new reality.
Exactly.
You are now operating in an environment where your local files, your system time zones, and your darkest midnight brainstorming sessions are subject to the silent, invisible whims of an AI company's good faith.
Knowledge is only valuable when it's applied, and the application here is awareness. You have to realize that the tool you're using to build your software is also, by design, observing you build it.
It's a two-way mirror. And here is a final provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Think back to that hidden Unicode apostrophe, the tiny invisible switch hiding in plain sight.
Right.
If Anthropic, the self-avowed, highly publicized moral center of the AI industry, the company that literally wrote the book on constitutional AI, feels the need to use hidden punctuation marks and sleeper agent software to enforce its rules and protect its data, what on earth are the companies who don't care about ethics doing with your data right now?